Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Blame It On Marketing with your favourite marketers, Emma and Ruta. I'm adding that in now for 2025. Why not?
Manifesting it.
Manifesting, we're your favourite marketers. And in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about every senior marketer's. I don't know why they do this. I mean, we're going to get into this, but why people decide to change their website without necessarily thinking it through. And we are joined by our website guru and our new Blame It On Marketing bestie, Alice Walton. Welcome, Alice. And we met Alice actually at a marketing tech conference, and we ended up next door to each other, which was really delightful. And Alice was awesome and kept introducing people to us. And we loved her so much. And when we found out that she was involved in building websites, we were like, we need to have this conversation because it's been a long time coming. So welcome, Alice.
I did worry when I said, oh yeah, well, actually I build websites, that you would then say, please leave, please don't speak to us.
Well, you were very kind to us. And actually, Alice also recently helped me with my website when something was wrong. And Alice stepped in and saved the day because she is a real life hero. So before we get into the topic of websites, which we're very excited about, Alice, please tell us your deepest, darkest marketing / website fuck up.
Okay. Well, is it okay if it's not linked to websites? But it is linked to podcasts and marketing. So I would say that, and it's a bit of a running joke now. So I actually started a podcast at the start of this year about AI and marketing, and it's the podcast that nobody's ever listened to. And I say it's a fuck up because obviously when you create a podcast, 8 episodes of a podcast, you do kind of expect them to go out there, like one listener, like my mum, but we didn't launch them. And yeah, so that would be my biggest fuck up in that sense. But it was great. It was such a great experience and actually then led to loads of opportunities.
Do you still want to get the episodes out there?
Do you know what? So there's a couple. I interviewed Heather Murray for one, and that's actually how I met her and how we started working together. And that's probably one of my most favourite hours spent just chatting to somebody, because we just got to talk about AI at that point. That was early at start of this year. Yeah, I would. Yeah, it was wrong time, wrong place, I guess. I don't, especially you two, because you work so well together, but you know that you have to rely on the other person to show up, or at least, be 100% in. And if somebody isn't, through no fault of their own, just circumstances, life changes, actually having, to make money as well, I think you can't do it sort of 70%, 60%. So, yeah. It was a great experience, and I definitely could see us releasing bits. But again, because it's about AI, it's so outdated now. It would be like, what is that tool?
I feel like that's a very, very reasonable and self-reflective fuck up. But yeah, if you want any help getting those episodes out, just let us know.
We'll where we are.
Get it happening. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
So let's talk about today's topic. Again, I'm surprised we haven't covered it because I feel like it's an actual marketing trope. We've all been there. We've been at a company and some new senior leadership comes in and they're like, oof, we need to scrap the website. We need to redesign and start from scratch. And then you're like, but why? And they're like, well, we need a refresh. And you're like, yeah, but why? And they're like, oh, it's outdated. And they don't actually give you any good reasons. So what is it with senior marketers being in love with a little website rebuild? And why do I don't include myself in those people, why do they think that it's going to solve all their problems?
Should we start with why, in particular, new senior marketers, people coming into the role for the first time, or not even the first time, but coming into a new role? I think, and I've sort of labelled it as like a fresh start fallacy. This idea that I think you come into this kind of role, it's really natural that you want to make your mark in this position. I think websites feel so tangible, like it feels like a real visible change when you actively go in and make that kind of your project. I also think sometimes it can be seen as a bit of a quick win, which obviously from my point of view is crazy. But I think, I think as soon as you start to unpick that that thread, you realize it's not. But actually, I think, again, especially if they had in their old role a site that was working, that was performing, I think they can sometimes feel like they can just copy that over. Also, there's maybe the other side of it with a sort of a rebuild of a site, is that it involves lots of things. So it's strategy, rebranding, repositioning. I think sometimes it can feel a little bit like, right, we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll get going with it. And I can imagine actually it's the same vibe, like the same sort of vibe as like social media, like, a social media strategy coming in and knowing like, right, we're going to sort all these channels out and we're going to get our message out there and we're going to post X amount of times a day. I think it's the same. I think it's that same feel.
Is it almost like a catch-all? So like, we need to work on the positioning, we need to work on the messaging, we need to work on some strategy, and working on the website kind of achieves a bit of everything of that.
It's like the home of that, isn't it? It's like the place where you can demonstrate that in the quickest way. I was about to say easiest, and then I stopped myself because I know that's not easy. But it definitely does go with this, like, we need to understand our value proposition. We need to understand our brand. We need to elevate our brand awareness. And I think that desire to do that, I feel like that has, I don't know if you guys feel like this, but I've seen it happen quite a lot. And I'm sure, Alice, you've seen it more times than us because this is what you do as a job. But I think what it does is there's an element in my mind that where I feel like this is what damages like the reputation of senior marketers, because when you do all of that stuff, I think there is maybe a lack of understanding about, and this is the sort of fits into the what goes wrong bit of this conversation. There's a lack of understanding about the fact that if you're doing those other projects, other things are taking a hit, right? If you're focused on driving revenue and pipeline, or even generating leads while you're working on those big projects, because let's be honest, I mean, Alice, I don't know what the average time for building a website is, but it sure it's not 2 months, is it? Right. That then pushes you into that space where you are really risking like a setback, but you do it because as a new senior marketer, you want to make a big impact. Do you think that's right, guys?
Yeah, well, I think as well, touching upon this idea of, so I know loads and loads of amazing heads of marketing, fractional CMOs that just shout strategy till they're, I was going to say blue in the face, red in the face, violet in the face, and violent. But I think as well, from a stakeholder point of view, that isn't usually seen as, I don't want to say waste of time or waste of resources, but this idea of like, oh no, we just want to get going. We just want to get going. Come on, we brought you in. And I think sometimes actually it's not even the case of the senior marketer making the mistake of a new website being the sort of the be all and end all as they step in. I think it's usually a push from those that have brought them in. So
it's almost like it's not okay to just be there for the first, I don't know, 30, 50, 60 days and just absorb and figure out the bucket list of what needs to be done and what priority. It's just like, well, we're here, but like just go away and do stuff. Website looks shit, let's go do the website. But it almost feels like they're not given that space to just be like, okay, let's figure it out, let's see what's happening with the team. Because it's one thing interviewing and you can ask all the best questions and all of that, but then you actually get into the role and you're like, oh, okay, I see these dynamics here, I see this, maybe we need to work on like performance management or like task division, or like, there's lots of things to go after when you start a new role, especially as someone who's managing most likely other people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So we spoke about this in terms of like a very gracious and pure way, right? Like it feels like it's okay to have that desire to want to make an impact. Why do you think rushing with the website rebuild is going to be potentially problematic?
If we talk about maybe like common pitfalls, is the idea of jumping straight into design without really understanding the data, like not having a look at what they've currently got in place, what's working. I think a lot of the time we talk about what's not working and what's not performing, but actually, what is working and what is resonating with those that are visiting our site. I think sometimes, especially if God, I feel like I'm going back to the social media side of things. But if you've got a strong social media game, you've got a strong graphics department or a designer that you've got in, that sometimes the aesthetics can kind of take over the user experience. Actually, sometimes it's like, doesn't need a full facelift. Actually, just looking at the bare bones of like the navigation or the way that people are using it, or, things that aren't, I know I've said that, like things that aren't working, getting those fixed first and then being able to review the performance after making those fixes. I think as well, sometimes, I don't know if it's because it's technical, but the idea of like the website sort of it's like doesn't sit within the marketing strategy. It's like a separate project. And sometimes, I don't know if that's because there's like, suddenly you have people from different departments needing to have a say on what's going on with the website. So maybe that gets lost. You guys will know better than I do when it comes to like why sometimes it becomes sort of left out of that marketing strategy, or a whole new strategy put in place for the website that doesn't resonate at all with what you've currently got in place.
I've seen many businesses feel very interestingly about their website. So there's businesses that are absolutely obsessed with their website, but not in like a helpful way, in a way of like they absolutely hate it and think that all of their problems are because of the website. And then you go in and you're like, no, I'm going to give you like 5 things you need to do before you even touch the website, because you've got much more important stuff going on. And then I've also seen kind of a total apathy towards the website, where it's like at the bottom of the list because it's just like, oh, whatever, like it's just there, right? It's where people check us out if they want to Google us. But there's also, I think, especially for Emma and I, when we work with a lot of founders and like early stage companies, there's a lot of ego and pride in websites. So it's like this is how people are going to see me. I want to have a website that I'm proud of. And then those people kind of forget who they're building the website for, which is their audience, not themselves. And that's when you start getting like all of these opinions from everywhere on design and blah, blah, blah. So even if you do have the data and you know what works and what doesn't work, and you've tried and you've fixed and you've tested, it still kind of gets pushed and skewed because there's a lot of like personal value in what the website looks like, which is kind of weird.
Do you know why? I guess like we know why that is, but how do you handle that?
It is really tricky. I think we would always go, I mean, this is the thing where we wouldn't touch the web. This is why when Ruta and I do go into companies, we don't touch the website first, apart from to look at performance things. We're not brand girlies, so the way it looks is not our problem. We're not as worried about that as other marketing directors or CMOs might be. But I certainly think, especially when it is a founder and they're particularly invested in the website, and in particular, I think usually it's around the copy that is the thing that gets people. I think making sure that the first things that you are doing are talking about your having that ideal customer profile, having the data that sits underneath, like what is going on under the hood of the website, not what it looks like. Is it doing the job that it should be doing? What is the buyer experience like for somebody when they hit your site? And if you can look at those things first and then have like what I think is a reasonable conversation, you can then start to unravel that kind of like founder mess. Because, if you see things, for example, like you've got a terrible conversion rate, but yet your hero image and your top headline bit of copy on your website is something very ethereal that no one understands because it's all very like ambiguous but aspirational, and there's no book a demo button, and then the next thing you know, there's a pop-up saying download our sales brochure with 6 fields
and accept our cookies.
Then of course your conversion rate's appalling because you haven't thought about your audience at all. So I think that's the way that we always frame it. I also really often say, and I don't even know if this stat is correct, so I'm probably going to get hauled over the coals by anyone I've said this to, but I usually go, you've probably got about 10 seconds to tell people what you do when they hit your homepage. And if they don't get that, you're going to lose them. So it's like, that's the experience you should be driving for.
Always going back to that ICP and kind of
always
also with always just like if there's an edit made and you're not sure about it as a marketer, be like, I don't think this matches the ICP, here's why. And also oftentimes founders are really deep into what they're doing, so their level of expertise on the topic is like way higher, so they're going to end up saying stuff that doesn't make sense to the normal buyer, and then. So what I do is I make sure that when we're doing an ICP, I actually rate that profiles both readiness and like technical savviness, so we can match up where they're at. So like if your knowledge is like at a 2 out of 5 and the founder's at a 5, I can then have kind of a reasoning to why we're dumbing it down, because I find that that's also like a real sticking point of like, oh yeah, but we should be like on the bleeding edge and saying all of these things, and it's like no one knows what that means.
No, they want to know what the thing is.
I love the idea of, I hadn't thought about it actually in that way, of that tech savvy like ratings card. Because if you're using like a LLM, right, and you put in something and it comes out with something quite formal, and then you bring it down, it's that hot and cold vibe, bringing it down a couple of pegs to making it more informal or more chatty, and it's the same feel. I hadn't thought about, actually, not just from an ICP point of view, but like, and a user experience and a user journey, but this idea of like, actually, how tech savvy are these people that are coming to the site, especially when it comes,
like you
tech savvy or like savvy within the topic, right, as well, like how knowledgeable are they already in that field.
And also it's like, so like within, so one of my clients, I think I can use this as an example, one of my clients within our ICP, there are kind of like, there's like a grade, this gradient of where they are in terms of their tech savviness and their ability to understand what their problem is, and so like we actually do really well with the people who you'd probably categorize as laggards, who are maybe a bit even Luddite, like they might be switching from literal paper to a platform, so if you're going to sell to those people, like in the first instance,
got to cater to them,
make it easy. Don't make their life hard. Don't give them some like, I mean, it's copy, it's design, it's everything, it's website functionality. It's like even through to how they book the demo, like the whole experience needs to be really straightforward, because our ICP is a group of people who are not used to necessarily purchasing stuff in this way. In the same way that I think a lot of us, and I can imagine a lot of people's ICPs, especially if you sell tech, are becoming more and more tech savvy because of the way that you buy in B2C,
I was going to say, actually,
like Amazon, you're like, easy.
Even like flipping it on its head, I've got a client who, when I asked about the mobile version of what they've got going on, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't really worry about that, because most of our leads come through desktop. And I sat there thinking, well, yeah, but is that chicken or egg here? But actually, because maybe you're not necessarily technical, or maybe you don't necessarily browse on your phone, actually, again, and I think this goes back to what you were saying, of like you going back to your, I don't know if you can call ICP strategy, but that kind of like, it's the foundations, isn't it? And you being able to refer back to that and be like, well, you might not be, but actually the people that are coming to us, especially if we're selling a tech, like a tool or a piece of tech or a piece of software, like they probably are, and they probably haven't got very much time. They probably are browsing everything through referrals on forums or on through email or whatever it is, that they just want to be able to click on and then be taken there and be like.
And if you're posting on social and expecting people to go to your site, they're on their mobile. There's just no way about it. Like they are on their mobile. Yeah.
Like like that formal working situation. Also, let's think about the fact that like your ICP, in most cases, everyone's always like, if they're really senior, they're really busy. No, we're all just really fucking busy. So if you are researching buying something, the likelihood is you are not necessarily doing that during your day job hours, because you don't have time to do your day job and research. So the likelihood is you are sat in front of Netflix in the evening with your phone in your hands looking at tech, because
94 tabs
losers.
94
tabs open, and doing your Christmas shopping at the same time. Sorry, I've dated the episode already. So one of the things that always grinds my gears, and because I have seen senior marketers do this when I've been in more junior roles, is why do some senior marketers forget that they need to build a website with SEO and conversion rate optimization in mind, and go straight in for the like look and feel and the vibes?
Thinking about your resources, thinking about where your budget spend is, thinking about the amount of plates that, and I am fully on the marketer side, so there we are. But, you know, the amount of things that you're now responsible for, I think a lot of the time it's we need to get something done. We need to keep up as well. If you're seeing competitors mixing things up, even if it's just face value, I think there's a pressure there as well, and kind of expecting that you're going to get an email or a forwarded link from a stakeholder going, oh, have you seen this? So I get that as well. So there is that, definitely. But I think as well, like, it's maybe like a visual track side of things, you know, trying to kind of get more excited about design rather than data. I think it's a lot easier to justify budgets if you're spending it on like visible elements, so designs and features and animation. But I guess maybe the user experience just isn't as glamorous, and it's easier to sell beautiful designs and beautiful site changes to your stakeholders, especially if they've only got a very short time to be able to review. I think it shows impact more so than that. But actually, and I won't even go down the kind of the side of things of like your website being just a brochure, because I think that's even an outdated view, even for people that are a bit Luddite. I think everybody's kind of seeing the value of websites and understanding why I say that out loud, but seeing the fact that it needs to be performing and it needs to be doing a job for you in that space. Honestly, I think it is that it's harder to show return of investment on prevention rather than cure. You can't measure the people that didn't get frustrated and leave the site, but you can measure bounce rates and you can measure abandoned carts when the user experience is poor, right? Or you can maybe quantify that the sales that you made from the forms that the sales that you made were because your forms were easy to complete, but you can obviously count the amount of forms or the abandonment rate when they're not. So I think a lot of the time it's really difficult as marketers to justify your user experience budgets up front, and that it's a lot easier to get the budget like to fix a problem rather than to prevent one, if that makes sense. That's my kind of my view on how to use it.
Nailed it.
I think the other thing I would love to add on this is a lot of the times, if you haven't done a bunch of website redesigns from a technical perspective, so you haven't done website redesigns on SEO and on CRO and on even like CMS usability, you're not going to know to ask for that necessarily. Yeah. And then if your developer, whoever, or designer, whoever's making the site, if they also are not interested in that, they're not pushing that on you, it's just going to get left behind. So my partner is a software developer and he absolutely hates me because I made him build me a website on the HubSpot CMS because I absolutely love using HubSpot. It's integrated, like I'm not going to go off. But developing in HubSpot for a developer is kind of ugly and clunky and not great. Like he's built his own plugins to just make his life easier. But the way he's built my site now is he never has to touch the website again because I can fully customize it, change it, do whatever the hell I like to it. And he's done it once. He absolutely hated it and probably won't do it again for me. But it's perfection because I can do everything that I want to do. And that's my other point is, when you're rebuilding a website, yes, that's SEO and CRO, but oh my God, please don't forget about your CMS and your ability as a marketer to change the website. Because if you build something that is static and you can't change, you're rebuilding your website in another 6 months.
Oh, I mean, and that happens so often. And you see that when people have got like a small budget and then it's almost like someone's locked the door and you can't get in. And you're literally like, the amount of people that I have spoken to when I'm like, you can't do anything with this site now.
Or naughty devs that use it to get a retainer.
Too. I mean, that is another whole episode.
I'm probably going to get outed. Am I going to get pushed out by the development? No, because I actually do feel that there's more of me. I feel like
come to the marketer's side, Alice. You're fine. We welcome
like
you.
One foot in, one foot out. A massive. The fact that you would have to spend like, I don't know, call, email, carrier pigeon, like smoke signal just to get like one part of your website, one word on like the third paragraph changed is maddening to me. And maybe it's because of the background that I've got of building sites so I started building sites for smaller businesses, people that didn't have, this is quite a long time ago, but people that didn't have the budget to spend on agencies. And that's kind of where I came into the market, because I was like, this feels like gatekeeping. It feels unfair that you'd be having to spend thousands and thousands of pounds at the time to get a brochure website, to get signposted.
Mm-hmm.
Was me being brought in, and it was never with the intention of retaining. It was always to be honest, I don't like commitment. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on here. I am married, but I don't like commitment. I like the idea of it being self-sufficient. Somebody being able to go in and use their own, use their own site exactly how they want to use it, to be able to update it when it needs updating, to be able to add in as much as they possibly can, and have somebody there on hand, whether that is in a retainer position or a one-off cost or whatever it is, when things go wrong, or things need really updating or refreshing. And we're talking like 10 years ago. So if you think of like the changes in tech, how accessible it is now to build your own site, rightly or wrongly, but being able to make those changes because it's so that the user face is so user friendly, it should be all about that. I think. I don't know if we've gone off on a tangent, but just I got on my side.
No. I think it's totally relevant for website rebuild, and I think that's maybe a lot of the time why people do keep rebuilding websites, because they're not built in a way that's compliant with how a marketer wants to work.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say this so we can clip this. If your marketing team cannot change the marketing website by themselves without a developer, you did it wrong. This shouldn't be your life. You need a CMS that you can control and change things on. Or if there's somebody else not allowing you to change it because it's like product's website, again, something's gone wrong.
Can I add on back, to our question, which was to do with it's about the SEO CRO thing and why? Because this is in the back of my head, because Alice, you posted something on LinkedIn, which was to do with talking about, the SEO tools, making it really difficult for generalist marketers to understand SEO because there's this whole other language set. And, and then you go into a tool, you log into SEMrush, and unless you are relatively competent at SEO stuff and SEO language, you'd have no freaking clue what to do with it or what any of it means. You'd be like, I don't know. So I think one of the reasons that senior marketers don't build websites with this stuff in mind is because the industry, if you like, of SEO holds generalist marketers outside. Like, it's almost like we've gone, no, we're really technical. SEO is super technical. You can't understand it, generalist marketer. And therefore, we just, like, lots of people go, well, it's easier for me to just build the thing, get the thing built, make it look nice, and worry about it later.
Don't worry about it later.
Because A, we know it's really expensive, and B, I don't understand fully the ramifications of doing it without it in mind. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I've certainly seen that. And then I don't think that the SEO community are always particularly very helpful in helping us understand.
But it's because they're so deep in, right? They're like deep. If you're making a new website, you really don't need to be that deep. When do we know that we actually need a new website?
Okay, so I've written down the honest sign. You need one now. Forget one now.
Now.
Okay, so I've written down the honest signs you need a new website. Okay, so I think, and what I get quite a lot at the moment is you're moving from startup to scale up. So something that you have put in place that has done its job, it's got you to this point, but actually you have outgrown your site, your brand has matured, and your site still feels like a startup. In my head, your website should be your hardest working employee, and I think if it's not keeping up with that, then it's time. Technical red flags. So I think like if your loading time is too long, the mobile version is outdated. This links back to what we were saying, this idea of you're playing chase the web developer, that every time you need a simple text change or any kind of small thing, or not even small, just like not having that control over your site. I think that is a big one to reassess what you've currently got going on. Accessibility. So I think, again, that is awful to say, but I thought it was like an afterthought with accessibility, and also got lumped in with user experience, which I guess it is, but I think it's that next level now. Not neglecting accessibility. putting real focus on like some real theory behind color contrast, like screen reading difficulty, even like alt text missing from images, kind of doing a really good review, getting somebody in. So performance issues. So bounce rate is terrible. Your analytics are showing that people are struggling to find what they need. Your conversion rates are low. Just a general health check and it coming out poorly. I would say that it's probably a good time to reassess. And I think the biggest one for me, and it's probably my favourite, potentially a t-shirt opportunity, but when somebody says that they go, we do have a website, but don't look at it. Don't look at it. Or we do have a website, but it wasn't me. I'm not responsible for that. That was before my reign. You know, this idea of like you're cringing when you're handing over your website URL. It's probably time for a change. And then looking at competitors. So like it's yours looks outdated, you're losing opportunities because of that, or you're spending lots of money on different channels, sending them all to a website that is just not converting.
I'm going to roll the next two questions into one because I feel like they do. If you need a new one, so I don't know, you've looked at this, you've identified some of the stuff that you guys have just mentioned. Where do you start? And also, I guess, do you start with trying to find a good developer or agency? And how can you sniff a good one out?
Okay, no is the answer. I think you start with what you've got going on. So exactly this idea of you auditing your current site, you know, what's actually working, we go back to that, and not just guesswork or I think, or so-and-so reviewed this and said, like actual data. Where are you losing people and what do your analytics tell you? Talk to your users. I can't get over it. I don't know if you guys experience this, but clients that haven't spoken to the people, their actual customers, I don't know if it's because we're in that digital age where they're faceless in some respect. I don't know if I can say that, but you know, actually talk to the people that have used the site or are using the site. You know, what do they struggle with? Why did they choose you? You know, what made them linger? What information do they need? So I guess that is built into I don't know if that's built into ICPs, but this idea of like actually talking to the people that are using your site and find clear goals. So like, what does success look like? How are you going to measure it? What are the problems that actually need solving? What's your budget? And not just thinking about it with respect to the project build, but like ongoing maintenance. You know, what does that actually look like? And how is that built into your overall marketing budget? And then content, I know I'm like all about content driving design, content driving the site. You know, what content do you need? The amount of times I've gone to build a site, I need a site now. Lovely. We want this, and we want this, and we want this. Lovely. Do you have any content for the site? Right. So what are we going to start with? Do you want me just to build? I mean, are we going to have it so that you scroll 3 times down and there's just no words? I don't know.
You want me to leave blank sections?
Just lorem ipsum it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Some sort of parallax so that it sort of like scrolls by and it's pretty. Like, no. So yeah, and who's writing it? You know, a big part of the spend I believe should be in the content. And like, again, link that in with your SEO strategy. Make sure that the two are married. And also then I guess that goes back into like the how will you maintain it and being able to have that control. Then and only then do you then look for the right partner and start thinking about design and plan your development approach and consider launch strategy, like the others first.
And don't let a dev or an agency push you around on the tech. If you know what tech you want, they should be helping you use that tech, not the other way around.
Yeah, working to what you've already got in place. And actually, now more than ever, there's so many different tools that people are using. The integration is massive. Like, we haven't really talked about it loads on here, but I think that that's going to be, if you're thinking about planning this and planning a rebuild, I think thinking about what you've currently got and a bit of housekeeping to make sure that whatever you decide to pick, whatever platform you're picking, complements those and works with those well.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So is there any marketing gossip that you would like to share with us, good or bad, something you've seen that particularly caught your eye or something that was bad or good, it doesn't matter.
Probably the thing that cropped up for me last week. So do you guys know Perplexity? I barely talked about AI, and I think I've done that, but Perplexity, so AI, can we say AI-driven search engine, I guess, is probably the easiest way of me explaining it. They're going to start using ads on their tools. So I am massive. So this is probably not gossip because I don't know yet, but I'm really putting a lot of thought, too much thought really, into what impact are these tools, these LLMs and these sort of AI-driven tools that people are using, what impact is that going to have on our sites, on how our sites are seen, how our sites are read? You think as well, this is probably mixing it up a little bit, but this idea of, so voice, being able to search via voice, thinking about your SEO strategy, thinking about your keywords, thinking about how people are going to find you, thinking about how AI is going to find you. I'm like loving it. And then thinking again about that kind of ad on top of that and the kind of the monetary side of things. Like, is that gossip? I mean, that was really wafty, but that's where my brain is at.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
No, it's really interesting now because like you only just have to look at like Google search. The thing that comes up at the top is the Gemini answer, right?
Alice, thank you very much for being on today. It was a great conversation, and we obviously all had quite a bit of zhuzh to get out about website rebuilds. So I'm glad we had this conversation. Alice will be on blameitomarketing.com when this episode airs. So if you want to ask her any really, really great questions about design, websites, tech, she'll be there for you. And otherwise, we will see you in the next episode.